So yesterday we were able to go through how we can download our APIs, set up our workspace, set up our collections, our sub collections, which are the user, register, and login. And then we're able to make different kind of calls. We've seen different kind of calls we can make from here, and we're able to also make different calls such as get request, get requests, post requests, which is this, and we also did patch deletes. Okay, this is post as well. So the next one I also want to mention is the pre-request script and the test scripts. So you can have your pre-request script set up. So whatever you have on your pre-request scripts, okay, will run first before your test script run. Okay. In our next class, we are going to look into how to set up our pre-request scripts. Okay, but today we are going to write a script. So with the script, you can automate your API testing using Postman. Okay, so now let's take, for example, this particular one. So in our last class, I did mention about some snippets, some simple code snippet that we have here. Okay, we have get an environment variable, get a global variable, get a variable. So if you use this code, depending on what you want to use it for, send a request, clear a collection variable. All these are simple code snippets that will appear in this form. Okay, so but we can also write more tests. Let me open that. So we can also write more tests to validate this response that we're getting. This response. Can also write more tests to validate this response. Okay, so instead of now, when you are making the request, instead of now coming to manually check all this response, you have written a test that will check this response for you. So long as your test is passing, you would know that it's coming back with the correct response. Okay, so we're going to write for the first one. We're going to write a test to update the first one. This ones, which is data ID. Okay, so if you are looking here, you can see that it has data and it has all these properties as well. So ID is equal to 2. So you can validate that depending on how you want to write your automated test. You can also validate that ID is equal to 2, that the postman is returning ID, that ID has a value of 2. Okay, that email has a value of Janet. Okay, you can say first name is Janet. You can also say last name is validate is Postman script written in JavaScript to say that the last name is Weaver. Or you can also want to make your test dynamic. Okay, to say that ID is returning an integer, that email is returning a string, first name is returning a string, last name is returning a string. Okay, you can decide to do it that way, depending on how you want to write your test. So let's start. Okay, so I'm going to remove this particular one. Okay, that is here. So we can write our custom one. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is to write a code. Okay, the first thing we want to do is to write a code. Okay, a line of code. Okay, that validates, that ensure, okay, that the JSON, the request body, okay, from the server are assigned into the variable of response body. So how do we do that? We'll do that by saying var response body. Okay, response body, you can see it's coming. Response body, okay, is equal to postman PM is postman dot response okay, dot JSON. Okay, so we'll have that var response body equal to postman.response.json. So what this line does for us is to make sure that the JSON response body we are getting from the server, okay, is assigned to the variable response body, which is var response body equal to postman. So this is a variable name. So the response body that is coming from the server is being assigned to this response body. Okay, so once we have done that, the next thing we want to check is we want to start validating all this information. Okay, we want to start validating the information. And how do we do that? Okay, so we can now start by creating a function. Okay, and the function we'll call Postman because we might want to say, let us validate the structure of this. Okay, we want to validate the structure of this response body, depending on if they ask you to validate that. Okay, so you could want to say that the response body has a property of data and also property of what? Support. Okay, so you are checking, and these are known as top level key. Okay, you can see this is a top level key, and this is also a top level key as well. Okay, you might want to validate this. Okay, it's optional, but it will be good to also validate that. Okay, so let us validate that. We're going to write a function, and this is how you write the function. You can say postman, right, dot test. So you're saying postman test. Okay, then put your bracket and then have your quotation mark. Okay, so what we want to do, we want to validate the structure and value. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is validate, okay, response, okay, structure. That's the first thing I told us that we're going to do. We'll validate the structure, which is this, and this, and then we can also validate the values. Okay, so postman test, which is postman test, validate response, okay, structure and values. Okay, so we have that, and outside our bracket, outside our quotation mark, we could have comma, and then we could call our function. Okay, so Postman is using IntelliSense for us. So you can see Postman is very smart, and you can see the IntelliSense that it's giving us. If we want to use it, we can just use tab. Okay,
yeah.
okay, you can just use tab, which does make sense anyway. So let's just say tab. Let me remove this one. Okay, so you can see how smart it is. Okay, so we have var response JSON equal to postman.json, which is similar to what we have here. So you can see the structure. That's to show you how smart Postman is. Yeah. So you can see Postman expects, okay, response.json. So if we're going to use this one that we have here, we can remove this one because they are the same. Okay. We can remove this one.
Okay, as a response.
Yeah.
Response.json. Okay.
I'll just
comment it out.
Yeah, I'll just comment it out. So you can see the first one is validate the structure. It's validating the structure, which is postman.expect response JSON to be an object. Okay. So the second one is saying postman expect response JSON to have property of data. Okay. Dot that is an object. Okay. We have another one, postman response to have property support. See, this is the data. This is the data. This is the support. Okay, these are properties. Okay, so the second one is validate data object properties and values, right? So we want to validate this. We have postman.expect response.data. So the reason why we're calling response and we're calling this data because you need to call this data before you access what is inside.
Yeah, of course.
Yes. So we call data.id. Okay.
Oh, these are properties. Okay.
Yes. To have property ID.
Okay.
That is a number.
Okay.
Right?
I guess
so it's going to be a number. We can have, so this is how we go. We can now validate all these ones as string. Okay. So look at, we also have a code that validates the support object properties and values, which is this and this. Okay. So if you have this, so if you have this script, okay, if you have this script, you can run your test. Let's write another postman. I'll just copy this ones. I'll just copy this one, and then inside there, I'll just replace it. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're getting the right value for these ones. okay, for the ID. Okay, so how do we do that? We will now say that postman expect response, okay, dot data to have, okay, property, which is ID. Okay, okay, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to remove this number. We're going to remove the number. Okay, and I'll put 2. So see what I'm doing? Okay, and I'm going to say postman.expect response.data, okay, .id, because I'm no longer confirming that the property is this. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to remove this. Okay. Okay. So and I have postman.expect response body. Okay. To have the property, to have the property, right? Dot. Okay. Let me just remove this and get the code right. So I have response JSON dot data. Okay. I want to also put dot ID. Okay. Dot ID. Okay. So once I have dot ID here, so I will come outside. Okay. And put dot to, okay, dot equals is this. Okay. 2. So what happens here is we're now saying that postman expect that JSON dot data dot ID to have to be equal to 2, right? You can see ID is equal to 2. So we can do the same for the rest of them. Okay, we can do the same for the rest of them. I can remove the value of this. Okay, I can just yeah. Okay, let me not just replace this. Let me just remove this one and copy the email address, which is this Janet, and then place it in here and place it in here. You know, it's a string, so you have to put it in double quotes, and then side I'll just place my Janet. So all I will need to do is just to remove all these ones. Okay, and inside here I have dot data. I can also have dot email, right? Dot email. Okay, we can have dot email. Okay, dot to equals, right, Janet. So what I'm doing here is that the email should be equal to this one, right? So we can also do that for the first name. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this one and then replace with this, so it can be quicker. So all I'm going to do is just to remove this email and put dot what? First name, which is first underscore name. You can just copy this, place it here, and then copy Jen, and then place it here. Place it here. Then the next one, you also do the same. I'll also paste it here as well. Close this. Then, so all I'm going to change validator is the last name. I'll just replace this with the last name, and then make sure I get the name, which is Viva, and the last one is the avatar. Dot avatar, and then this. I can just copy this to make sure that this is here. I'll just replace it with this one. Right. So that's it. So if you look now, you can see that we've written all the code. You can see the code we have. So I can just remove this. Also have our local variable. Okay. If you look now, you can see we've written the text. All this text, all the scripts we have, we validate everything we have here. Everything. So I think one of the most important one that we haven't added the one that will validate the status code. Okay. So I think I have you can add this one if you want. The one that will have the status code is 200. Just click on it. Okay. Or you can also decide to add it inside here. Okay, that status code, but let's have it outside. as well. So we'll have two tests now. So if we save our test and run, so you can see we have two tests passed. So this one is one test, and this one is one test, and this one is another test. That means everything here is coming back okay. So let's change our test. Let's stimulate our test to fail. Let me say that the ID will be 1. Okay, let me just put 1 here. Of course, you know that it won't be 1 here. Okay, and let me also put that our status code will be 201. So this test will fail because we're expecting that it will fail. Okay, if I say I'm wrong, you can see that the test has failed. 0/2. Reason because what I have put on here, okay, is not what is returning. The ID is 2, or I have that Postman should expect that is 1, and the status code is 200. While I'm saying that the response will have status code 201. So that's why our test has failed. But if I update it and say 200, and then we should also expect that this should be 2 as well. If we save and run, our test will pass.
How about if we leave it at 200? Okay, if we make it 200 and and change the value to 1.
It will be 1/2. 200,
Yeah.
and let me change the value to 1. One test will pass and 1 will fail.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So
So
let
it
me
will.
run. You see, this validation has failed. Okay, see.
Assertion. Okay. Expected to
Yeah.
deploy.
Yeah.
Okay. So it means that at the end of the day,
Mhm.
you can know, you have an idea of
Yeah.
the
The test that
test
failed.
that have
Yeah.
passed and the one that
So
have failed.
yes, it's expected to expected to be deeply equal to 1. Okay. So it's
So,
expecting 2, but we have it 1.
so it means that it's very easy. Now becomes very easy to troubleshoot or
To
pinpoint
troubleshoot.
where the
Exactly.
problem is actually coming from. Okay.
Yes. And you see all these our validations. You can decide to separate them. You can decide to have a test that only you can decide to say, but that would be more of you can decide to have all of them on you can decide to have this one in a separate function, have this one in a separate function, have this one in a separate method, have this one in a separate method. Okay. So, but that would means that you'll be saying Postman test validate this. Do you get what I mean? I don't know if you get what I mean. So you can decide to say, this is what I mean. Let me show
Yes.
you what I mean. You can decide to take this and place here. Okay. So this test will not only validate the structure. I can say validate response structure. I'm removing value.
Yeah, I think I get it.
You get what I mean? I'm removing value, right? So I also have to, and this particular one, I'm going to make it global. I'm going to remove it under this particular one and put it outside. Okay, and have it outside here. Okay, so that it will utilize every other method. Okay, so I'm going to remove it from here. Yeah. So once I have done that, I will also create another method to run my test. Okay, I'll just copy this particular one, this particular function, and place here. Okay, and place here. So, and this is to validate data response objects and value. Okay, I'll just copy this and place inside validate response data object and value. I'll just place it here. Validate response object and data. And I'll just close that particular method. Okay. So I can also do the same for this one. This one is to validate the data property and value. Okay. So that way you have so many tests. So I'll just copy this. Validate data object. Okay, it's the same basically. So validate data property and object value is the same basically. Or yeah, I'll just put values. Let me just make it different. Properties. It's validating the value, but it's not. Okay, I will put value and value type. Okay, because it's validating the value type. It's validating is the string or yeah. So, but this one actually validate the values basically. So all we need to do is just to close that particular function with this.
So you have different functions.
Yes, instead of
Validating
having
different
yes,
things.
so instead of having all of them under one function, I'm having different functions now. So you will see,
I think it's a better approach having them in different functions so I can reuse, if possible, if there's possibility of reusing
yeah, yeah,
code, something.
yeah. So you can have them in different functions so that you state what they are doing. So this is validating the support objects. So this is validating response support objects and value type. Support object and value type. Response support objects. So instead of having all of them in one value type, okay. So you could close it. So yeah, that is fine now. So I'm going to update this one to be 2 so that it will all pass. Okay. So we have what we have done now is we now have different functions. Okay, for all this. So what we needed to do for that to work is to have this. Let me close this gap. So what we needed is to have this outside, because if we have it inside, it would only be used around here, so that we can use this variable, okay, outside. So all what we're going to do now is to save and run our test. You can see we now have 5 tests. We'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So if I go here, you can see different tests. Can you see? This one is the status code. This is validating response structure. This is validate response data objects, property and value. This is validate response data objects, property and value. This is value type. This is values. And this validate response property. So let's say, for example, if I change this one and one failed, if I change this to 1, okay, save and run. Just save and run. So you can see,
Four, five.
yeah, see 4 is passing, 1 is failing. So this will not tell me that this test is failing under response data object, property and value and values. So I can just quickly go to that particular method, which is this one, and see why. Okay. And then I will come back to my body and see what I'm getting is 2. Okay. Is it what I'm supposed to get? Okay.
Mm.
So now this is very fantastic when you are doing TDD, test-driven development, when your organization is doing test-driven development. Okay, test-driven development, we have BDD, we have TDD. So
Mm.
TDD is here, which is test-driven development, is when you have written your test, you've written your test script before even developers will start development job. So once they are done with development, you just run your test. So for when you write your test, okay, so you write it and run it, it will fail. TDD. So, but once developers are done developing, you will now come back and run your test. You will expect it to pass if they have done their job. So now, let's say we have the requirements. You can use the requirements to write up this automated tests, all these scripts, automated scripts, Postman, because they will tell you the structure. They will give you this. They will give you what the endpoint will look like. They will give you the structure of the response. They will tell you the values. Okay, you can build up this script using your requirements even before developers actually develop the API. Then you will assume that when you run it, it will fail. But once they are done, they'll say, "Oh, I'm done developing." You just run your test, it passed, everything is okay. So TDD makes the development process even much more quicker, and faster. And the delivery of that particular software will be quick. Let me just code this and then run it. Then we can continue to have a chat. Where is it now? Yeah, two, two. Save. Then I can run. 5/5, everything is fine. So yeah,